CBS Sports NFL Insider. Jay, what's happening, buddy? How are you?
What's going on, guys?
All good, man. Let's start with the Giants and the Steelers here. I don't know if you heard me saying before where we know what the Steelers' plight is, how they're locked in with the Ravens, probably going to be there for the duration of the season for that division supremacy, the North. But the Giants, it's very rare that a New York team kind of flies under the radar in any sport, but yet it seems like the Giants just, for whatever reason, aren't getting a ton of pub. Why is that?
Well, I think it's probably because the only team in the league hotter than them is in their division and is kind of doing it with a lot of glitz and glam and splash. I mean, I think it's Dallas. Dallas, right? Again, last night, 11 in a row. Now, it was ugly last night, but it's mostly been, sort of like heroic and these big wins and Dak and Zeke and what the rookies are doing there. And so that's kind of captured everybody's imagination. That's got all the attention around the league and certainly in that division. So I think it's obscured some of what the Giants have done. And let's face it, so the Giants are winning a lot of close games against, not the greatest teams in the world a lot of weeks. Even last week against moribund Cleveland, it still was kind of chippy, kind of ugly. But Odell Beckham is quietly going back to being – it's funny. All the talk about Odell Beckham when, like, God forbid, he got a little upset on the sidelines. And now he goes back to being, like, statistically the greatest, 3 or 4 year receiver in the history of the league. And you're right. He's flying under the radar because he's just, balling out every week.
Yeah, no, the Giants need him to ball out every week. Otherwise, I don't think they win. It's amazing all the talent that they have on offense and how pedestrian it seems sometimes. A lot of that's probably because of the run game. There's not a ton of balance at all. The New England Patriots, they lose Rob Gronkowski for the season. We know that he's been banged up over the course of his entire career. What do the Patriots do now? Because they're not the same team without him, and they love to go two tights, but they don't have two viable tights right now. How is this going to affect them long term?
Well, I mean, long term, they hope he responds from this surgery well. They'll give him all the time he needs in the off season and beyond, whatever it takes. I don't think anybody's going to be sweating bullets if he's not ready for the first day of camp or anything like that. And look, this shouldn't be that long of an injury, but regardless, look how they handled the hamstring thing, right? I mean, that's obviously minor compared to this. They gave him probably a week or two more than he maybe would have needed for the hamstring, just because of who he is and the import that he has. So I don't think he's going anywhere. He's under contract. Now, look, if he stayed healthy, they were going to rework that contract probably sooner rather than later. My guess would be at the Combine and get it in line with some of the other top tight end salaries in the league. I don't know that that's going to be the case now. When you're talking about a third back surgery, it may play a role in that. But as long as Gronk wants to keep playing football for the Patriots, I think he's going to have that opportunity.
All right, we're talking to Jason La Canfora with us here on CBS Sports Radio. Tiki and Tierney show, Jay, CBS Sports NFL Insider, inside the NFL Today. Tops, of course, CBSSports.com. He's with us every Friday, and we appreciate it. I want to play something for you, Jay. A little more context for our audience here. Big picture with Gronk. Bart Scott said this on Tuesday night here on CBS Sports Radio. Give this a listen, and then I want to get maybe a little more detailed reaction. Go ahead, guys.
Gronk's on his way out because of injuries, and I think they don't stick with you when they see you slipping. Now, what happens when you have a big man that starts having back problems, and guess what? They already brought in his replacement, and they can get him for cheaper.
Okay, so I know you already kind of touched this, and that was Bart Scott again on Tuesday, but why would they – I know he's a transcendent talent, maybe certainly more so than the other players they've let walk out the door over the years. But why would this not be 100% business like it always is with the Pats?
Well, because he's still producing.
But the other guys, Jamie Collins is one of the best players in the NFL.
They didn't think he was producing.
Well, they were wrong.
They didn't think they needed him. Belichick wanted to send a message to that defense that there's no sacred cows here. And just because we're winning doesn't mean that everybody's doing his job on that side of the ball. And they didn't think that he was doing his job, so they shipped him out. In part, to shake everybody else up. But they don't, look, Gronk shows up on Sunday, he's a difference maker. And they've never discounted that or tried to claim that's not the case. And Bennett is an unrestricted free agent. And so, I don't know how cheap he's going to come, and I think they'll make every effort to keep them there. But what they do best is run that offense out of the two tight end set. They're going to lose Josh McDaniels. They don't have difference-making receivers on the outside. So, no, I think Gronk is in a little bit of a special case. Now, look, next year he has another back surgery. He breaks down again. We'll see where that goes, but I don't see them phasing him out in this coming off season.
You know, another team, and there's not a ton of great marquee matchups this weekend, but the Washington Redskins traveling out to Arizona is one, and it's interesting from a preseason thought. The Cardinals were a team they're going to get right back to where they were, right? They were right there with Carolina, but they faded. Now, there's a couple of things that happened this offseason, and Tiki was drafted, and then Chandler Jones was brought in. And you heard Bruce Arians say a few things early on, like, these guys don't know what they're doing, they're selfish, etc. Can it directly be tied to the type of characters that they brought in that aren't in line with what Bruce Arians had built there the first couple of years?
I don't think so. I mean, because coming into that game last week against Atlanta, which is obviously an elite offensive team, they're number one defense in the NFL based on yards per play,
True.
which is, that to me is actually the most across the board sort of equalizer, right? I mean, yards per game, well, some teams are running more plays than others. Teams are doing stuff in garbage time and blah, blah. To me, it comes down to yards per play. They're number one in the NFL. So, and those guys play on that side of the ball. The offense has been really the problem, right? I mean, they're not the chunk yards aren't there, the explosive plays aren't there, the deep throws from Carson Palmer aren't there, the points aren't there, and the passing touchdowns aren't there. Now, a lot of that has to do with the offensive line and some issues and injuries they've had there. But I mean, it's kind of a weird team because statistically, the defense, again, they had their troubles with Atlanta, although they did stop the run for the most part. They couldn't stop Taylor Gabriel, but they're running the ball, and David Johnson is going over 120 scrimmage yards every week. It's the problem is what Arians does best. The problem is the passing game.
Now, who is that? Is that Arians or is that Carson Palmer?
I mean, I hear mixed opinions. When I talk to advanced scouts, when I talk to people who've watched that team closely on film or in person, I get a mixed bag of Carson Palmer's hit the wall, or in some weeks, where he's played better, and guys have seen those games, they're like, Carson Palmer might still have a year left in him, but they're going to have to find ways to upgrade what's around him. You know what I mean? Somebody other than Fitzgerald's got to be the go-to guy. They don't have a transcendent tight end, and I think that's probably, at this stage of his career, that's probably what Carson Palmer needs. They're still trying to get by with Gresham, and that's, not particularly sexy. They've got the little speed guys on the outside, but they don't have a true number one receiver.
I mean, every advanced metric has pointed out that his deep throws, he's not performing well. I mean, is it a schematic thing or is it a Palmer thing? I would say more Palmer.
He's 36 years old. He's been hurt a lot. You know what I mean? He's had rotator cuff issues in the past.
I hear you, Jay.
Surgeries.
Yeah, I know.
Some of these guys, when it goes quickly.
There's no doubt. I want to get injury updates on both Simeon and Watkins before you go, but definitely we need to do this too, because we've hit it a few points this year. Let's reestablish the truly hot seats around the NFL. Which coaches really do you think are going to lose their job?
I mean, Jacksonville is that's going to happen. And then to me right now it's Jacksonville, and then there's some other situations where it'll depend on the last couple of weeks, and then there's some other ones where I don't think it's going to happen, even if common sense, you know what I mean, or the fan base wants it.
So which are the ones where the next couple of games will truly define who's out?
Win the AFC South, right? So Jacksonville in the AFC South, Jacksonville is done.
Yep.
And then who doesn't win that division? Who thinks they should? And I tend to think with the way Mariota's playing and with where that ownership situation is, that if Tennessee finishes above 500, they're not going to do it. But if Tennessee win the division and Houston and Indianapolis finish 8-8, then you could be looking at those two.
Okay.
Green Bay, I don't think it's the coach, even if the bottom falls out. I think it's probably personnel.
Yep.
Do the Rams not win a single other game and get blown out every week? Okay, if that happens, maybe it's Jeff Fisher. But if they win a game along the way and Goff looks okay, I think it's probably personnel changes and Fisher stays the same. San Francisco. Somebody's got to win between San Francisco and Chicago because they play each other. I guess they could tie. Do I think they're going to give Chip Kelly $20 million to go away if he doesn't want to go to Oregon? No, I don't. But is this it for Trent Baalke? Maybe, because they've got to do something there to try to sell some season tickets and get a buy-in. Cleveland, they're not going to win a game. Do I think it's Hugh Jackson? Probably not. Do I think it's something in personnel maybe and some coordinators? Probably. Chicago, it's year 2. That's not a family that makes this kind of change. Trestman lasted, 2 years, and then to do this again. Do I think they change personnel on the personnel side maybe? And I don't know that means that Ryan Pace leaves, but could they bring in some sort of football czar or something to buttress it that way? Yeah. Do I think they're firing John Fox with all the money left on his contract? No. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it could be a weird year. Does Detroit fall apart? If they do, then that could be a change, but they don't look like they're going to. The average is 7.5 a year.
Black Monday.
Coaching changes.
Yep.
I don't think we get there this year. The Jets. If you put a gun to my head right now, I would say they don't make a change. But obviously, they still have five games to play.
Trevor Simeon's going to play?
No. No, I'd be shocked if Simeon plays. He's still in that boot. It's a fairly significant injury, at least in terms of his ability to play this week. And his shoulder was pretty banged up already coming into that. No practice reps this week. No, Paxton Lynch is going to start for them.
Sammy Watkins also?
I think it'll be like last week where he's on a pitch count. They monitor it. I mean, it's a pain threshold issue. That he still has issues in his foot from that surgery. They can't take that. Taking out that pin won't make it go away.
Yeah.
They rested it as long as they thought they had to, and it's just going to be. He's a guy who he. It's not that he starts games; it's that he doesn't finish a lot.
Oh, is that all?
Boy,
that just seems fragile.
That's sort of been his issue, even from the giddy up. So. Yeah, I mean, I think he's got an opportunity to flash and make some plays, but do I think he's going to be out there for all 65 offensive snaps? No.
Gotcha.